Legacy written in sand and steel. It started with a question whispered through generations. What does it truly mean to build a legacy? Not the kind measured in wealth or monuments, but the kind that endures long after names fade from public memory. For one Sheikh, the answer would emerge not from comfort, but from a moment that nearly shattered everything he believed. To understand why his journey matters today, we must look beyond the skyline shaped by his family's influence. Modern luxury often hides a deeper truth. Every towering structure once began as uncertainty. Every empire once rested on the shoulders of someone carrying doubt. His path reveals that legacy is never inherited fully. It is tested, earned, and rebuilt through choices no one else can make. He was raised within walls adorned with history, surrounded by reminders of the leaders who came before him. Yet those walls also carried expectations. They whispered stories of past victories, urging him to uphold a legacy that felt both inspiring and impossibly heavy. He admired his ancestors, but he feared one thing above all: failing to honor the weight they had carried with such grace. The first challenge came unexpectedly, disguised as a harmless invitation to oversee a key infrastructure project. It was meant to be simple oversight, a symbolic gesture for a rising young member of the ruling family. But as he studied the documents, something felt wrong. Numbers didn't align, timelines seemed too polished, and behind the layers of official approval, he sensed a tension no one wanted to acknowledge. He began asking questions, quietly at first, then with growing urgency. Advisors urged him not to worry. Engineers reassured him that everything was under control. But beneath their confident words, he detected hesitation. It was subtle but unmistakable. And he knew that sometimes danger hides not in noise, but in silence. Then came the realization that changed everything. This project was not simply flawed. It was vulnerable, built on assumptions that ignored a critical structural risk. If left unchallenged, it could collapse, not just physically, but politically, economically, and reputationally. And the responsibility to act now rested entirely on him. He moved cautiously at first, gathering evidence without drawing attention. Each report he reviewed revealed deeper inconsistencies, hidden beneath layers of confident explanations. He realized the project had been pushed forward too quickly, driven by pride, deadlines, and a desire to impress rather than to build something that would last. Yet exposing this truth meant confronting people who had served his family for decades, individuals who believed loyalty required silence. He began meeting specialists in private, seeking unbiased perspectives. Their conclusions were clear and alarming. The foundation design was insufficient for the scale of what was planned. Environmental stress tests had been skipped or softened. Risk assessments were outdated. What had been presented as a symbol of national progress was, in reality, an unfinished idea wearing the mask of certainty. As he gathered proof, tension around him grew. Advisors questioned his motives. Engineers insisted he was overreacting. Some saw him as inexperienced. Others saw him as a threat to their reputation. Yet beneath their resistance, he sensed something more troubling. Fear that acknowledging the truth would unravel years of political and financial effort. The deeper he dug, the more he uncovered a pattern of quiet compromises. Each one small enough to ignore, yet together forming a chain strong enough to break the entire project. His nights became longer. His thoughts carried the weight of responsibility no one had prepared him for. He knew that if he acted, he would disrupt powerful alliances. If he stayed silent, he would betray everything legacy was supposed to protect. The conflict intensified when documents surfaced revealing that several high-ranking officials had approved the project despite knowing its weaknesses. Their signatures formed an invisible wall around the truth, designed to ensure progress continued no matter the risk. Exposing them would ignite a political storm. Protecting them would endanger the nation. Whispers spread that he was becoming too involved, too curious, too disruptive. A few allies warned him discreetly. Step back before this becomes dangerous. But he couldn't. The image of a future failure, lives affected, trust broken, legacy tarnished, kept pushing him forward. Still, the largest challenge remained. Public expectations had already taken root. Announcements had been made. Groundbreaking ceremonies held. The people believed in a vision that had not yet earned the right to stand. And he now faced the impossible question. Was he willing to dismantle a celebrated dream in order to protect a future no one else could see? Pressure closed in from every direction. Each day brought another meeting, another attempt to persuade him to let the project continue untouched. Some appealed tradition, reminding him of the nation's pride. Others invoked loyalty, hinting that questioning senior officials threatened the unity his ancestors had built. But beneath their polished words, he sensed the same underlying fear that truth, once revealed, could not be controlled. He found himself standing alone more often, navigating conversations where agreement felt rehearsed and honesty felt dangerous. Yet the more isolated he became, the clearer his purpose grew. Legacy was not maintained by silence. Legacy endured because someone at the right moment had the courage to disrupt comfort before it became catastrophe. The conflict escalated when one of the senior engineers confronted him privately. His tone was respectful, but his warning unmistakable. If the Sheikh continued pushing, the project funding could collapse, contracts might be canceled, and foreign partners could withdraw in embarrassment. It would be seen not as a correction, but as a failure, and the blame naturally would fall on him. The engineer ended with a single sentence meant to frighten him into surrender. Sometimes it is better to carry a flaw than to expose one. But those words did not weaken him. They clarified everything. He returned to the site shortly after, walking the length of the foundations, still being prepared. The air was thick with dust. Machinery hummed. Workers moved with the confidence of people who believed the structure rising before them was unshakable. Watching them, he understood the full weight of what could happen if he chose the wrong path. Legacy was not an idea. It was a responsibility, and responsibility demanded truth, even when the truth complicated dreams. Still, he hesitated, not because he doubted the danger, but because he feared the consequences of stopping the unstoppable. What would his people think if construction halted? How would the world view a nation pausing a flagship project halfway through? Would his family see him as a guardian or an obstacle? Late one evening, as he reviewed the files once more, he discovered something devastating. A recent internal audit hidden from him confirmed the structural risk in explicit detail. It had been ignored, shelved, buried under layers of administrative pride. The evidence was indisputable. The project was flawed at its core. The realization hit him with the force of a collapsing wall. This was no longer a matter of caution. It was a matter of protection. If he walked away now, he would be complicit. If he acted, he would become the force that reshaped the fate of a structure already celebrated as a national triumph. And so the decision formed within him, sharp and steady. He would confront the truth publicly. He would risk reputation, comfort, and acceptance to preserve a legacy greater than himself. The moment of reckoning was no longer distant. It was coming, and it would change the course of everything built upon sand and steel. He convened an emergency council, summoning every official, engineer, advisor, and leader connected to the project. The room filled quickly, humming with the confidence of people who believed they understood the purpose of the meeting. Yet as he began to speak, their certainty dissolved. He laid out the truth clearly. Every flaw, every omission, every risk hidden behind polished presentations and unearned optimism. The atmosphere shifted from unease to shock. Papers rustled. Eyes darted. Some officials tried to interrupt, but he pressed forward with unwavering calm. He presented the buried audit, the disregarded assessments, the structural vulnerabilities no one wanted to confront. And then he said what no one expected. Construction would halt immediately. Not paused, halted, until a complete redesign ensured the project would stand not just for decades, but for generations. Silence thickened in the room. For many, this was a nightmare. For him, it was necessary. The climax came when he addressed the very heart of the matter. Legacy, he said, does not rise from avoiding discomfort. It rises when leaders protect their people from risks hidden beneath celebration. He reminded them that monuments are meaningless if their foundations are compromised, and progress has no value if built upon denial. His firmness was not anger. It was clarity shaped by everything he had uncovered. Reactions were immediate and mixed. Some officials bristled, fearing the loss of prestige. Others sat stunned, realizing how close they had come to allowing disaster. But a quiet group, Those who understood true leadership looked at him with newfound respect. They saw not a young heir meddling in matters above him, but a guardian stepping into the responsibilities history had placed upon his shoulders. In the days that followed, the nation reacted with surprise, curiosity, and eventually pride. Experts revised the structural plans. International partners acknowledged his courage. And what emerged months later was a project reborn, safer, stronger, more innovative than the original design had ever promised. He visited the site once more at sunrise, watching the new foundation begin to take shape. There, amid steel and sand, he understood the lesson fully. Legacy is not preserved through perfection, but through truth. And the greatest structures are not defined by height or grandeur. They are defined by the integrity behind their creation. So what do you think? Are we repeating the same mistake again?